As we headed south from Belén, we passed through more desert, reminiscent of the southwest of the United States. And by around midday, we noticed that the trees were getting larger and closer together, and we were again driving through what looked like an incredibly pointy forest. Towards the end of the day, outside of the capital city of Catamarca, we once again found ourselves on a tiny road. This one went straight up the side of the mountain. It only had one lane, but there was two-way traffic, and it offered some truly spectacular views of the valley below. As we crested the top of the mountain, we were greeted by a flock of condors and once again found ourselves driving through what looked like the Altiplano, which, after our relatively warm stay in Belén, was uncomfortably cold. Fortunately for us, that night we found a campsite on the other side of the mountain, at a slightly lower and slightly warmer elevation.
So Gabby accidentally stole our set of keys from our last host. We're here at the post in some tiny town in the middle of Argentina, trying to send them back. We were trying to send them back yesterday, but we ran into the problem that everything is closed between about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to about 5 or 6 at night for siesta time. It's the longest siesta I've encountered in the entire world.
One of the perks of siesta time, however, is that most people in Argentina aren't driving during siesta either, so if you want to have long stretches of road all to yourself, this is the prime time to be driving.
So we made it out of the mountains down into the warm, flat, humid lowlands of Argentina. It's nice and warm down here, but of course the downside is that it's humid. And when we woke up this morning, all of our things were dripping wet. And now we have to drive through some fog. So it turns out what we thought was the quickest route to Corrientes is actually just mud. 100 miles of just the worst mud possible. So for us, it's pretty much impassable. The motorcycle is just completely full of mud right now. It took me about half an hour to drive a mile of this stuff, so I think we're going to turn around.
After that time-consuming, stressful, and very dirty detour, we decided that it would be best to stick to the main highways. And we soon found ourselves crossing over the river Paraná, which is the second largest river in South America. Here, between Resistencia and Corrientes, the river's width is measured in kilometers, and the bridge is incredibly high as well to accommodate all of the shipping traffic that passes along the river. Now, if you're not sitting down already, you may want to do so, and get ready to have your mind blown. South America is home to not one, but two species of miniature ostrich. I say miniature, but in reality there's nothing really miniature about them, except for the fact that they're smaller than their African cousins. These here are the greater rhea, or nyandu, and they can grow to be almost 5 feet tall. Until a couple years ago, I had never even heard of these animals, and when I did, I was shocked that I had somehow missed the existence of something so large for so long. And it brings me great pleasure to be able to share their existence with you today. And now you can go forth and alert the world as to the existence of the miniature ostriches of South America.
Today we were trying to make a phone call and meet up with our workaway host, but everywhere with a phone in town is closed for siesta. Fortunately, the library is still open and they have Wi-Fi. So we arrived in Bella Vista, Corrientes. This is our home sweet home. Check out our super high-tech kitchen. 100% recycled materials.
When our super awesome hosts found out that we had an interest in the observation of birds, they kindly pointed us to the best place nearby. And we spent the day driving along a sandy secondary highway, taking in all of the strange and new creatures we could see. Take these guys, for instance. In English, their name is simply screamers. In Spanish, caja. They're named after the sound they make, of course. We had our first Argentinian asado with the Fernandez family, who are the best neighbors that we've ever had. And we finally discovered the secret to finding internet in Argentina. It turns out that the YPF gas stations almost always have internet. That, combined with the fact that they sell gas and food and they are open during siesta time, makes them one of the most important traveling companions that we've had since we entered Argentina.
The city of Bella Vista, where we've been staying, it sits on the banks of the Rio Paraná, which is the second largest river in South America, with a length of somewhere around 4,800 kilometers. It drains most of the Pantanal, wetlands that are south of the Amazon basin, and it's large enough here it almost looks like an ocean with a beach and everything. The only thing is, here it moves relatively quickly, and the water's actually quite dangerous. The locals say that there are whirlpools that'll suck people down and drag them out into the middle of the river. So possibly the best part of staying here in Bella Vista is our neighbors have an avocado tree full of giant avocados, and they're just giving them away to us by the handful. So for lunch we're having hot dogs, fire roasted hot dogs with fire roasted red pepper on local buns from somewhere nearby, smothered in guacamole, just dripping. I've dropped probably a pound of guacamole on the ground. It's just overflowing with so much avocado. My life is amazing right now.
Great.
Before we left Bella Vista, our amazing host Piri invited us over for another asado with his family. We said our goodbyes and prepared to head off to Paraguay. We headed out from Bella Vista and made our way back to Corrientes capital and across the bridge again to Resistencia. And from there we headed north in the direction of Asunción.
Tonight's campground also comes with a show. We get to watch the local football match.
Being an American who's generally disinterested in sports, it's safe to say that I don't know much about football, or as we say, soccer. But for me, watching these guys play barefoot in the mud was just as exciting as any World Cup game that I've seen.
It's 9 o'clock and we're about to start our crossing into Paraguay. We have to cross by boat, so keep your fingers crossed for a speedy crossing. This is probably the emptiest border crossing we've encountered. There's nobody here. Well, it took us 8 minutes to leave Argentina. Now we just have to wait for the boat to take us to the other side.
We drove down a muddy earthen causeway and boarded our nearly empty river ferry, and it pulled away from its moorings as soon as we had stopped moving. This little ferry is one of the strangest that I've ever seen. It was powered by a tiny tugboat that was anchored to the middle of the ferry barge by a pivot. The barge itself never actually turns around. The little boat just switches directions every time it crosses the river. We disembarked easily without much excitement onto another earthen causeway and headed for the immigration station.
Well, it turns out we can't visit Paraguay because I need to pay a tasa de reciprocidad, or reciprocity fee, because it's expensive for Paraguayans to ask for a U.S. visa. But once again, can't get it at the border. I need to go back across the river and visit the consulate on the other side, which is closed until Monday. Today is Friday. So yeah, looks like we're not going to be visiting Paraguay.
Crestfallen, we boarded the ferry again and made our way back to Argentina. Fortunately, the ferry operator only charged just half price to return.
So we couldn't enter Paraguay, and it's all the Pope's fault. The Pope is visiting Asunción today, and because of that, all kinds of things are closed. It's a national holiday in Paraguay. And the only way for me to enter Paraguay is to go to a Paraguayan consulate in Argentina and pay my reciprocity fee. But the consulate is closed until Monday, so we're not going to Paraguay. Well, we spent about an hour crossing in the boat and then crossing back in the boat again. But fortunately, as we are heading back, we found a animal rehabilitation center that has in its care animals that were captured by the police that were being trafficked as exotic pets. So here we have a tapir, which is a relative of the horse and the largest land mammal native to South America, and a very, very tiny deer. Careful.
So you may be thinking, how can this thing be the largest land mammal in South America? It doesn't look very big. Well, that's because it's a juvenile. The adults can grow much larger.
Oh, hey, check this out. There's just a couple of pumas chilling.
The pumas are here, of course, because somebody thought that they would make a good pet. But it turns out that they're a highly efficient killing machine with a large natural home range that get grumpy when they're kept in a small cage. And there's also some capuchin monkeys here, which are incredibly cute, so somebody probably thought they would make a good pet. But it turns out they're a highly intelligent creature with a large natural home range that get depressed when they're kept in a small cage. And there's some macaws, which are an incredibly beautiful creature, so somebody probably thought they would make a good pet. But it turns out they're a long-lived, highly intelligent creature that can fly, so they go a bit crazy when they're kept in a small cage. And there's some albino-colored peccaries, which are incredibly rare, so somebody thought that they would make a good pet. But it turns out they're dumb as a brick and highly aggressive. And you guessed it, they get grumpy when they are kept in a small cage. The Rehabilitation Center does its best to re-release all of the animals back into the wild, but some of them, for whatever reason, cannot be re-released and have to be cared for life. So think about that next time you want to buy a monkey. Another thing I should probably mention is that most of northern Argentina seems to be made out of horrible mud that sucks to walk in and drive in and just generally live in. Having nowhere else to go, we decided to head back to Bella Vista through gray, rainy weather that matched our depressed mood. And late in the day, we crossed the giant bridge over the river Paraná between Resistencia and Corrientes for the third time. Upon our return to Bella Vista, we were promptly invited to another asado, this time at the house of Tito Alvarez, a fellow motorcycle traveler. Fortunately for us, Tito had time to take us out and show us some of the sights around Bella Vista, including these unassuming-looking dirt cliffs which have yielded some absolutely spectacular Pleistocene fossils. The prehistoric megafauna of South America were really weird. There were armadillos the size of small cars and giant ground sloths that had claws the size of my forearm. And there were large elephant-like mastodons, too, as you can see by this tusk, above which is a picture of a man about to have a very bad day. Since we were going to be living here in Bella Vista a little bit longer, we decided to build a house. The workaway site had a pretty much unlimited supply of bamboo, and that combined with a little bit of string and some plastic that our neighbors generously donated is pretty much all you need. After a couple days of work, we found ourselves with a greatly improved standard of living. We only got to live in it for a few days, but hopefully future workawayers will enjoy it as much as we did. During our long and fruitless drive to Paraguay, we had developed a funny squeaking noise in the front wheel, so I went to the local motorcycle workshop to see what I could do. Fortunately, it turned out to be just a bunch of mud stuck in the brakes, but we cleaned and repacked the bearings anyway, just to be safe. Another thing you should probably know about Argentina is that everyone is always drinking mate. Mate is basically a special kind of tea that you drink out of a gourd with a metal straw, and pretty much anywhere you go in Argentina, someone is going to offer you one. And if you drink it, you're probably going to burn your face off, because most of the people in Argentina use literally boiling water. And somehow they manage to drink it without flinching. Oh hey look, it's the Loch Ness Monster floating down the Rio Paraná.
So our neighbors have one of the coolest trucks I've ever seen. It's a 1981-ish Chevrolet, and it has an air-cooled diesel engine. It's like a Volkswagen engine, kind of, except diesel, and it's from a tractor.
As much as we enjoyed our new home, it was about time for us to leave Bella Vista again. We said goodbye to the best neighbors ever and Piri, our amazing host, and we headed off once again. Thanks everyone for all your support and encouragement. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and we'll see you all next time.